If you want to understand why two people can do the same workout, eat roughly the same diet, and end up with profoundly different outcomes in terms of energy during exercise, post-workout fatigue, soreness the next day, and how quickly their muscles come back stronger, do not look at their gym routine. Do not look at their supplements shelf lined with powders and shakers with ingredient lists that require a chemistry degree to decipher. Look at one simple beverage consumed at the right time, with the right preparation, and at the biological mechanisms it activates inside your muscles and cardiovascular system that most people exercising today have never had explained to them. Here is something worth understanding before we go any further. The global pre-workout supplement market is worth over $13 billion annually. It is dominated by products containing high-dose synthetic caffeine, beta-alanine, creatine monohydrate, citrulline malate, and various proprietary blends of compounds with varying degrees of research support. And while some of these ingredients do have genuine evidence behind them, the vast majority of people purchasing these products are paying for aggressive marketing, artificial sweeteners, artificial colors, and doses of stimulants that produce short-term sensation of energy while doing little for the biological processes that actually determine athletic performance and recovery over time. The research pointing toward what genuinely moves the needle on endurance, muscular energy availability, and post-exercise recovery is considerably more interesting than what gets put on the front of a supplement tub, and considerably more accessible. Hi, I am Dr. Liana. I am an emergency medicine physician and sports medicine researcher. I have worked with patients across the fitness spectrum, from recreational walkers trying to maintain their mobility into their 70s to competitive masters athletes managing the intersection of high training demands and age-related physiological changes. And across all of them, the single most consistently underestimated variable in performance and recovery was not their training program. It was what they were or were not consuming in the window before exercise, and specifically whether they were giving their cardiovascular system, their working muscles, and their mitochondria the biological inputs they needed to perform at their best and recover most efficiently. Today, I'm going to tell you about a specific pre-workout beverage, explain exactly what it does inside your body at the molecular level, walk you through the relevant clinical research, and give you a precise protocol for preparation and timing. No proprietary blends, no artificial anything. Just the science, the mechanism, and the practical protocol. But first, let us talk about what exercise actually demands from your biology, because most people think about exercise in mechanical terms: muscles contracting, joints moving, heart beating faster. But what is actually happening at the cellular level is far more complex, and understanding it explains exactly why the right pre-workout nutrition matters so much. When you begin exercising, the oxygen demand in your working muscles increases dramatically within seconds. Your heart rate increases, your breathing deepens, and your cardiovascular system works to deliver more oxygenated blood to the tissues that need it. The capacity to meet this increased oxygen demand depends on several factors simultaneously. First, cardiac output, the volume of blood your heart pumps per minute, which is a product of heart rate and stroke volume. Second, vascular conductance, the ability of your arterioles, the smallest arteries feeding muscle tissue, to dilate and allow more blood flow to active muscles. Third, oxygen extraction efficiency, how effectively your muscle mitochondria can pull oxygen from the blood passing through the capillaries. Fourth, substrate availability, whether your muscles have adequate fuel in the form of glycogen and fat to sustain the metabolic demand of the work being performed. The critical molecule at the center of vascular conductance and oxygen delivery to muscles is nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a gaseous signaling molecule produced by the endothelial cells lining your blood vessels from the amino acid L-arginine through the action of an enzyme called endothelial nitric oxide synthase. When nitric oxide is released by endothelial cells, it diffuses into the smooth muscle cells of the surrounding vessel wall, activates an enzyme called soluble guanylate cyclase, triggers production of cyclic GMP, and causes the smooth muscle to relax, dilating the vessel and increasing blood flow. This process, called endothelium-dependent vasodilation, is the primary mechanism by which your cardiovascular system regulates blood flow distribution during exercise, shunting more blood to working muscles and away from non-essential organs. Here is the problem that develops with age and inactivity. Endothelial function declines. Nitric oxide production falls. The vasodilatory response to exercise becomes blunted. Working muscles receive less blood flow per unit of cardiac output. Oxygen delivery is compromised. Exercise feels harder, fatigue sets in earlier, and the metabolic byproducts of anaerobic metabolism accumulate more rapidly. This is a significant contributor to why exercise capacity often declines with age, and it represents a modifiable target that specific dietary compounds can influence in documented, measurable ways. The beverage I am going to walk you through today addresses this mechanism directly and powerfully, along with several others relevant to muscular energy, exercise capacity, and post-workout recovery. That beverage is fresh beetroot juice, or more specifically, cold-pressed beetroot juice prepared correctly from whole beets with appropriate timing before exercise. Beetroot is the most dietary, nitrate-dense vegetable available to most people in Western markets. It contains between 1,000 and 3,000 milligrams of inorganic nitrate per kilogram of fresh weight, dramatically higher than other commonly cited dietary nitrate sources like spinach, arugula, or celery. When you consume beetroot juice, the nitrate is absorbed through the small intestine into the bloodstream. Nitrate-reducing bacteria in your mouth and in your gut convert a portion of this nitrate to nitrite, which is then absorbed and carried throughout the circulatory system. In the slightly acidic environment of the stomach and in tissues experiencing low oxygen conditions, which is precisely what happens in working muscles during exercise, nitrite is further reduced to nitric oxide. This is the dietary nitrate to nitric oxide pathway, and it represents a parallel route to nitric oxide production that does not depend on the endothelial enzyme ENOS, meaning it is available precisely when endothelial function is impaired. Think of it like a backup power system. Your main power grid for nitric oxide production is ENOS in healthy endothelial cells. When that system is running at reduced capacity due to aging, cardiovascular risk factors, or chronic low activity, the dietary nitrate pathway provides an alternative current that supplies nitric oxide directly to tissues that need it most during the low oxygen conditions of high-intensity muscular work. The first and most foundational mechanism through which pre-workout beetroot juice influences exercise performance is this enhancement of muscle oxygen efficiency. Researchers at the University of Exeter in the United Kingdom conducted a landmark series of controlled trials examining the effects of dietary nitrate from beetroot juice on oxygen cost of exercise in healthy adults. In a trial involving 8 recreational cyclists who consumed 500 milliliters of beetroot juice or placebo in a crossover design, participants who consumed beetroot juice showed a statistically significant reduction in the oxygen cost of submaximal cycling exercise, measured as lower VO2 at matched workloads, along with significant improvements in time to exhaustion during high-intensity exercise. The mean improvement in time to exhaustion was approximately 16% in the beetroot group compared to placebo, with the effect attributed to the measured increase in plasma nitrite levels and the enhanced muscle oxygen delivery inferred from the reduced oxygen cost of submaximal work. The mechanism behind the reduced oxygen cost at submaximal exercise reflects an important additional pathway beyond simple vasodilation. Beetroot-derived nitric oxide also appears to influence mitochondrial efficiency directly. Specifically, nitric oxide interacts with cytochrome C oxidase, the terminal enzyme in the mitochondrial electron transport chain, in a way that reduces the proton leak across the inner mitochondrial membrane, a phenomenon called mitochondrial uncoupling that normally represents wasted metabolic energy. By reducing this leak, nitric oxide effectively increases the ATP yield per unit of oxygen consumed, making muscles energetically more efficient at the mitochondrial level. Think of it as improving the fuel economy of your cellular engines. The same amount of oxygen generates more usable energy, which means muscles can sustain work longer before fatigue metabolites accumulate. The second mechanism relates to enhanced blood flow to fast-twitch muscle fibers specifically. Fast-twitch muscle fibers, the type 2 fibers recruited during higher-intensity exercise, have lower baseline capillarization compared to type 1 slow-twitch fibers. They also have less capacity for oxygen-dependent aerobic metabolism and depend more heavily on glycolytic pathways that produce lactic acid and cause the burning sensation associated with high-intensity effort. Enhanced nitric oxide production from dietary nitrate preferentially improves blood flow to these type 2 fiber regions, partly because they experience the most severe local hypoxia during contraction, which drives the most active nitrite to nitric oxide conversion. Researchers from the Maastricht University Medical Center in the Netherlands, studying 8 weeks of dietary nitrate supplementation in 68 recreationally active adults, found significant improvements in mean power output during maximal sprint intervals and reduced blood lactate accumulation at matched work rates in the nitrate supplemented group compared to control, with the authors attributing the lactate differences partly to improved oxygen delivery to glycolytic muscle compartments. The third mechanism concerns post-exercise recovery and the reduction of exercise-induced muscle damage. When muscles perform eccentric exercise, meaning the kind of work involved in the lowering phase of resistance exercises, in running downhill, or in any movement where the muscle is lengthening under load, microscopic damage occurs to myofibrils and surrounding connective tissue. This damage is the stimulus for muscle adaptation and growth, but it also produces inflammation, swelling, and the delayed onset muscle soreness that peaks 24 to 48 hours after unaccustomed exercise. Nitric oxide and the polyphenolic compounds present in beetroot alongside its nitrate content, including betalains, the red pigments responsible for beetroot's characteristic color, and various flavonoids and phenolic acids, have demonstrated anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties that may help modulate the acute inflammatory response following exercise-induced muscle damage without completely suppressing it, since some inflammatory signaling is necessary for adaptive remodeling. Researchers at Lewis University, studying 20 participants who consumed beetroot juice or placebo for 3 days following an eccentric exercise protocol designed to induce muscle damage, found that the beetroot group reported significantly lower pain scores at the 24 and 48-hour time points and demonstrated better isometric strength recovery at 48 and 72 hours post-exercise compared to the placebo group. Serum markers of inflammatory activity were measured and showed attenuated increases in the beetroot group, consistent with a modulation of the inflammatory cascade following muscle damage. The fourth mechanism involves beetroot's effects on substrate utilization during sustained aerobic exercise. Specifically, dietary nitrate has been associated with enhanced fat oxidation at moderate exercise intensities in several research contexts. During exercise in the moderate intensity zone, the fat oxidation pathway requires adequate oxygen delivery to function optimally because fat oxidation is entirely aerobic. When nitric oxide enhancement from dietary nitrate improves oxygen delivery to working muscles, the contribution of fat oxidation to total energy supply during moderate intensity exercise increases, sparing muscle glycogen for higher intensity efforts later in the workout or competition. A study from researchers at the Swedish School of Sport and Health Sciences involving 16 trained male cyclists found that dietary nitrate supplementation from beetroot juice over 5 days was associated with a significant increase in fat oxidation rate during submaximal cycling compared to placebo, measured using respiratory gas analysis, along with enhanced time trial performance in the second half of a simulated cycling event, consistent with glycogen sparing during the early phase of exercise. Now let us move to the exact protocol because timing and preparation are absolutely critical with beetroot juice, and get this wrong and you forfeit most of the benefit. The optimal timing for consuming beetroot juice before exercise is between 90 minutes and 2 hours before your workout. This is not arbitrary. The peak elevation in plasma nitrite, which is the circulating form of dietary nitrate that gets converted to nitric oxide in active tissues, occurs approximately 2 to 3 hours after nitrate ingestion. Consuming your beetroot juice 90 minutes before exercise positions the peak nitrite availability to coincide with the first 30 to 60 minutes of your workout, when the cardiovascular demand is highest and the benefit of enhanced vasodilation and oxygen delivery is greatest. Consuming it immediately before exercise means peak nitrite availability comes after your workout is substantially complete. The dose used in the majority of performance-enhancing research protocols is between 300 and 500 milligrams of dietary nitrate, which corresponds approximately to 250 to 300 milliliters, roughly 8 to 10 ounces, of concentrated cold-pressed beetroot juice, or alternatively, a standardized beetroot shot product containing the equivalent nitrate content. Many commercially available concentrated beetroot shot products contain approximately 300 milligrams of nitrate in a 70 milliliter shot, which is the equivalent of approximately 800 milliliters of standard fresh beetroot juice. These shots are more convenient and more consistent in nitrate content than fresh juice, which varies significantly depending on the beet variety, growing conditions, and processing. For maximum bioavailability from the dietary nitrate pathway, do not use antibacterial mouthwash before or after consuming your beetroot juice. This sounds counterintuitive, but the conversion of nitrate to nitrite in your mouth by oral bacteria is an essential step in the pathway. Chlorhexidine mouthwash and other antibacterial oral rinses destroy the oral microbiome bacteria responsible for this conversion, and research has shown that using antibacterial mouthwash blocks the nitrite elevation that normally follows dietary nitrate consumption, abolishing the performance benefit. Brush your teeth if needed, but skip the mouthwash in the period surrounding your pre-workout nutrition. Prepare your fresh beetroot juice by cold pressing whole raw beets through a juicer. Do not cook the beets first, as heat degrades nitrate content and destroys some of the polyphenolic compounds. If using a blender rather than a juicer, blend raw beet with a small amount of water, then strain through a fine mesh strainer or cheesecloth. Add half a small lemon's worth of juice to the final product. The citric acid from lemon slightly acidifies the juice, which may enhance the nitrite conversion step in the stomach. Store unused fresh juice in the refrigerator for no more than 48 hours in an airtight container, as nitrate content declines with prolonged storage. From clinical practice, here are 6 things that maximize the effectiveness of a beetroot pre-workout protocol. First, be consistent for at least 5 to 7 days before expecting to notice meaningful performance effects. While acute nitrite elevation occurs with a single dose, the research consistently shows that the most significant performance benefits emerge with 5 or more consecutive days of daily nitrate loading, suggesting some degree of adaptation in the nitrate-nitrite-nitric oxide pathway and in mitochondrial responsiveness to nitric oxide signaling. Second, combine your beetroot juice with a small amount of dark leafy greens for complementary nitrate provision. Arugula in particular contains very high dietary nitrate alongside its other benefits. A small pre-workout salad or green smoothie containing a handful of arugula alongside your beetroot juice extends the dietary nitrate provision through a second source. Third, do not consume beetroot juice with high-dose vitamin C supplements immediately at the same time. While vitamin C is beneficial in the diet overall, very high doses of supplemental vitamin C have been shown in some research to scavenge the nitric oxide generated from the dietary nitrate pathway, potentially reducing the vasodilatory effect. Separate high-dose vitamin C supplementation from your pre-workout beetroot protocol by several hours. Fourth, stay well hydrated in the 2 hours before and throughout your workout. Nitric oxide's vasodilatory effects are most effective when blood volume is adequate. Dehydration reduces stroke volume and blunts the cardiovascular benefits of enhanced vasodilation. Drink 16 ounces of water in the 2 hours before exercise, in addition to your beetroot juice. Fifth, consider adding a small amount of creatine to your pre-workout protocol alongside beetroot juice. The two mechanisms are complementary rather than redundant. Creatine enhances phosphocreatine availability for explosive short-duration maximal efforts. Beetroot's nitrate enhances oxygen delivery and mitochondrial efficiency during sustained aerobic and moderate-intensity work. Used together, they address different parts of the energy spectrum during a workout. Sixth, after your workout, prioritize protein consumption within 30 to 60 minutes. The post-exercise recovery benefits of beetroot's anti-inflammatory and antioxidant compounds are most relevant when the anabolic window is also properly managed. A high-quality protein source delivering at least 25 to 30 grams of protein post-workout provides the amino acid substrates for muscle protein synthesis, while the beetroot compounds modulate the inflammatory environment of recovery. The most common mistakes people make with pre-workout nutrition, and specifically with beetroot juice protocols, are these. First, using beet sugar supplements or beet-flavored products that contain negligible actual nitrate. Beet sugar and beetroot juice are entirely different products. Beet sugar contains essentially no nitrate, having been refined out of the sugar cane. Second, consuming their pre-workout nutrition too close to exercise, within 30 minutes, and then wondering why they do not feel different. Timing is as important as dose with dietary nitrate. Third, using antibacterial mouthwash as part of their morning routine right before their workout, eliminating the oral microbiome responsible for the critical nitrate to nitrite conversion step. Fourth, expecting beetroot juice to compensate for inadequate training, sleep deprivation, or poor overall dietary quality. No single pre-workout strategy substitutes for the foundational habits that determine fitness trajectory over time. Beetroot juice amplifies a good foundation. It cannot build one from nothing. Fifth, abandoning the protocol after 1 or 2 sessions because the effect was not dramatic. The most meaningful benefits of dietary nitrate on endurance performance are most apparent during sustained moderate to vigorous exercise lasting 20 minutes or longer. In a brief 30-minute gym session primarily involving rest between sets, the benefit to exercise performance is less apparent than during a sustained run, cycle, or high-intensity circuit.